When you think about famous people from history, usually one thing pops into your head, right? One big, juicy story that kind of defines them. And for King Henry VIII, man, that one thing is really dramatic.
And get this, even Henry himself, on his deathbed, apparently knew what was coming. He kind of guessed he wouldn't be remembered as a great warrior king. Nope, he knew it was going to be all about the wife killings. And that right there is the heart of the whole mystery.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How did England's golden boy, this promising young king, turn into the monster we all read about in the history books? Let's get into it because, trust me, his story is one wild cautionary ride.
All right, to really get Henry, we've got to set the scene. Picture England in the late 1400s. It's just coming out of a long, nasty civil war. The new king, Henry VII, that's our Henry's dad, is ruling with an iron fist. Super paranoid, super suspicious. People were terrified of him, but nobody liked him.
So you've got this stark contrast. On one hand, you have his dad, Henry VII, a total tyrant, just squeezing every last penny out of his people. And then, in comes the son, young Prince Henry. He's handsome, he's athletic, he's charming, everyone absolutely loved him. He was like a ray of sunshine for a kingdom that was pretty beat down.
And look, he wasn't just a pretty face. This guy was the real deal, a true Renaissance man. He could speak multiple languages, he composed music, he was a top-notch scholar. And, this part's super important for later, he was a deeply devout Catholic. I mean, he really respected the church. But here's the twist. Henry was never actually supposed to be king. He was the spare. His older brother, Arthur, was the heir apparent. But then, Arthur suddenly dies, right after marrying the Spanish princess, Catherine of Aragon. And just like that, an unprepared Henry is yanked out of the shadows and boom, he's next in line for the throne.
So at just 18, he becomes King Henry VIII. And right from the start, he's got these two huge obsessions. One was about securing his family's legacy, a royal duty. The other, purely personal desire. And the collision of those two things, well, it's going to change England forever.
First things first, Henry marries his brother's widow, Catherine of Aragon, hoping to get that all-important male heir and lock down the Tudor dynasty. But it just doesn't happen. As you can see, it's just heartbreak after heartbreak. One pregnancy after another ends in tragedy. The only child to survive is a daughter, Mary. Now, for a king who is obsessed with his legacy, this isn't just a bummer, it's a full-blown crisis. So while all this anxiety is building, Henry's eyes start to wander, and they land on one of his wife's ladies-in-waiting, a woman named Anne Boleyn. She was captivating, smart, funny. She just completely mesmerized the king. But here's the thing about Anne. She wasn't like his other mistresses. Oh no. She wasn't going to be a side piece. She wanted the whole shebang. She was aiming for the crown. And Henry's crush quickly turns into a full-blown obsession. He's sending her all these, well, let's just say, very passionate love letters. But Anne keeps saying no, which of course just makes him want her even more. And pretty soon, a light bulb goes off in his head. He thinks he can solve both of his problems, no son and his obsession with Anne, with one single, incredibly bold move. Get rid of Catherine and make Anne his queen. Okay, but there's one teensy tiny problem. A massive one, actually. Divorce was a huge no-no in the Catholic Church. So for Henry to pull this off, he'd have to get special permission and annulment from the most powerful guy in Europe, the Pope. So Henry tries to find a loophole. He argues that his marriage to Catherine was cursed from the start, pointing to a line in the Bible about not marrying your brother's widow. But the Pope is in a really tight spot. See, Catherine's nephew is the ridiculously powerful Holy Roman Emperor, Charles V, and he basically has the Pope under his thumb. So after dragging his feet for years, the Pope's final answer comes back, a big fat no. Now, most kings would have probably just given up at this point, but not Henry. He wasn't most kings. First, he fires his top advisor, Cardinal Wolsey, for failing. Then, with Anne Boleyn whispering in his ear, he does something absolutely radical. He basically says, you know what? The Pope has no power here in England. And in this jaw-dropping power grab, he declares himself the supreme head of the Church of England. This was the turning point. The moment everything changed. This is when the young guy who used to idolize the Pope suddenly realized, wait a minute, I'm the king. I don't need anyone's permission. He could do whatever he wanted. And that taste of absolute power, well, it was like a drug, and it was about to turn toxic. So now that he's literally ripped an entire country away from the Catholic Church just to marry the woman he's obsessed with,
Henry's transformation from golden prince to paranoid tyrant really starts to pick up speed.
And a lot of historians point to one specific event that might have poured gasoline on the fire. In 1536, he takes a nasty fall in a jousting tournament. He's knocked out cold for 2 hours. There's a theory that the brain damage from that fall completely changed him, making him way more angry, paranoid, and just cruel.
And that's when the infamous revolving door of wives really gets going. You know the rhyme, right? First, Catherine of Aragon, divorced. Then Anne Boleyn, who also doesn't give him a son, gets framed for treason and beheaded. Jane Seymour finally gives him a son, but then she dies. He divorced Anne of Cleves because, well, he just didn't think she was hot. Catherine Howard, Anne's cousin, gets the same treatment, beheaded. And finally, Catherine Parr, the last one, actually managed to survive him.
But listen, it wasn't just his wives, not by a long shot. Anyone who stood up to him, who questioned his new church, or who just plain got on his bad side, could end up on the chopping block. Get this, during his reign, it's estimated that something like 72,000 people were executed. Just think about that number for a second.
So while he's having these powerful, manly portraits of himself painted, the reality was pretty grim. After his accident, he couldn't joust anymore, but he kept eating like he could. We're talking 5,000 calories a day. He got enormous, and that leg wound from the joust, it never healed. It just oozed smelly pus for the rest of his life. The Golden Prince was long gone. In his place was this sick, terrifying, and unpredictable tyrant.
So, after all that chaos, breaking with Rome, all the wives, all the executions, what was left? What's his real legacy? Well, in a way, he failed at his main goal. That son he fought so hard for, he died as a teenager. And the Tudor dynasty, it actually ended with his daughter, the incredible Queen Elizabeth I.
But he definitely succeeded in one thing, making sure nobody would ever forget him. By putting what he wanted above everything and everyone else, he ended up completely changing the course of English history and English religion forever. He basically became the dictionary definition of king, a ruler with absolute power that almost no one has ever matched since.
So yeah, even though he founded the Church of England and totally redefined what it means to be a monarch, he was right all along. We absolutely remember him for the wife killings.
And in the end, Henry's story is just this crazy reminder of how the personal wants of one powerful person can completely alter the destiny of an entire nation. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When does a leader's powerful vision cross the line and just become the selfish whim of a tyrant?